Hey guys, it's Scott from fxmissions.com. Just a note, I've finished the trilogy of anthologies from the forefront, and all 3 books are currently available on Amazon.
Welcome to Foundational Missions Leadership Moment. Join your host, Scott McClelland of FX Missions, as he deep dives into the lives of leaders to glean secrets that will propel today's leaders to new heights. Here's Scott.
Welcome back to the final part of our interview with Scott Sidler. If you haven't caught the previous 2, you'll want to do that. Last time, we talked about how diligence and integrity helped Scott avoid a disaster. This time, we're going to talk about how walking in integrity requires faith. I just want to ask, or kind of get you to elaborate a touch on what it has meant to you to not necessarily to be trustworthy, integrity, those kind of things we've talked about some here. What has it meant to you to be trusting in business? How has your trust of God informed your approach to business? It seems like it's a big element in there, but we haven't touched on it directly.
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's an experience that I think has been a little bit nerve-wracking for some of the folks who work here in the office, especially on the finance side, because anybody who knows small business is like, the cash flow doesn't exactly happen exactly as it's supposed to.
Right.
So sometimes that client's like, oh, I forgot to send that check for $20,000. You're like, well, just FYI, that check for $20,000 was going to pay people's salaries next week. So kind of need that check to come through. Can we work that out? Yeah. And we've had a lot of times where I'd come home and talk to my wife or I'd be at work looking through the books. And I'm like, I don't see how payroll's going to, I just don't see how it's going to happen next week. I know that it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And you go, this might come in, but I don't feel confident on it, but it could.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll sell one of these jobs and they'll send in a deposit check and that'll help. But 11 plus years, going on 12 years of our company, I've never missed a single week of payroll for folks. We've always had enough. It's happened several times. And I had a finance manager for a number of years who's like, well, we're going to have to do this. We'll do this. It's like, no, it'll happen. It'll just happen. And she's like, there's not enough in there. I was like, there's not enough in there today, but it's Monday. Payroll's on Thursday. And lo and behold,
here it is.
Something would close. Somebody would sign and be like, how do I send you the check? And you're like, you send it right here. And it's like, it was a really great faith exercise for me and for some of the people who worked here that I was like, that's not how I plan a business. Like, I'm always making sure the cash flow works, that our receivables and payables are in line, so we're not doing stupid stuff.
Right.
Like, hi, I just bought a truck this week. We'll figure it out. It's like, that's not how we run a business.
That's not it. Right.
But it was like, there's always times where there's a cash crunch. And every time that there has been one, if I'm like, well, we're going to be $10,263 shy, lo and behold, a payment for $10,280 comes in like the day before. And it's a fun exercise for me at this point where I start stressing and I'm like, you know what, God, I'm not going to stress. I know you're going to provide, and that they'll still come be like, should we do this? Like, we've done everything we can. Yeah. And now the ball is in his court, and he doesn't miss a hit. When God and I are playing tennis, he's never like, oh, that one got past me. I didn't expect that. He's always hit it, and he's always hit it spot on. And, my time in prayer with him is usually in that praise side of things is exciting, but also like, I get that word from him that he's like, well, but you didn't need it till Thursday. So if I gave it to you on Monday, you wouldn't have looked at me. You'd have been too busy with your business. But on Wednesday, you were paying attention. We were talking a lot, weren't we? And sometimes it's just a way to get attention. He's like, I know when you need it, and I'm not going to give it to you the day after, but I'm also not going to give it to you the day before.
Right.
And you've been faithful with it. And because you've been faithful, we can do this. And from a financial aspect, that's happened. And then just this year, the COO at our company, we started talking about it. I was like, we haven't been turning the kind of profit that we wanted to early in the year. We're like, 2021, we need to change that. We need to do like quarterly tithes, whether we have it or not. Okay, so we're going to start tithing. We're going to force that money into a separate account and live off of the other 90.
Yeah.
And 2021, after we made that decision in December last year, and this year business has exploded and profitability has been great. And we've found some amazing hires and stuff that I went, sometimes you go, oh, it's just a good business period, just a good quarter, a good year or something like that. But there's growth and improvement and profitability that I can't explain other than to say that God was like, I've been here for 10 years waiting for you to say, you're going to give me those first fruits.
Yeah.
I don't need them. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I want this to be a harvest of righteousness for you. And the more you plant by giving it back to me, the more you're going to harvest. And so it's
Wow.
allowed us to do some really fun stuff with the money from a charitable standpoint.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
for our employees, for improved benefits and helping people out. It's been phenomenal.
Man, that I heard someone say that was the only time in Scripture where God said, "Test me," related to what you're talking about. And I mean, I haven't done the exhaustive research on it, but I think it's generally true that that's the only time God said, "Test me in this," and I'll prove myself. I really applaud your efforts and your stepping up there. That's a good example. There's so much more and more and more that we can find that God's leading us into to give ourselves and everything that we touch to Him, because it's all a stewardship anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been entrusted to us. So to give it back to Him.
None of it's mine.
Yeah. We're not going
to
lose.
I get to use it for 80, 90 years or whatever, and then it goes someplace else. So why am I so tied to all this stuff?
Yeah. Obviously, the nature of materialism is trying to get us to identify with those kinds of things. I mean, we're growing in God and realizing that we can trust Him with what He's entrusted to us. He was entrusting it to us in the first place. I just really applaud your steps of faith there and everything you're doing in your business. Obviously, there are more challenges, things we don't see coming, but we know and we have confidence and we can trust the one who's called us. I'm so thankful personally about the faith, really education that I've gotten in business by following the Lord and being led. And it can be a little bit unnerving, especially for people who are also involved in the process, who are not maybe holding the CEO hat or whatever. It can be, as you noted, a little bit of a challenge. But thank God that He demonstrates Himself in ways that we all can see.
Yeah, it would be hard for me being in business, not being a believer. I'm sure there's probably ways that could make more money here or there, but I want to make an impact. I'd like to make money, but I'd like to make an impact. And honestly, knowing that none of it is a surprise to Him gives me that peace, because my perspective is very limited. I only see just around the corner, whereas Jesus sees the whole road ahead and knows exactly where we're going. So when everybody's like, "Who could have predicted a pandemic?" I know somebody. I mean, He didn't lay it all out for me and tell me, but He knew what was going to happen. He knew how this was all going to play out, and He knows how it's going to play out in 2022 and 2023. So there's a peace for me in knowing that He's got it. I don't have to worry about all that other stuff. I just need to worry about what He puts in front of me and handle it the way that He would, in the way of what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Well, He would do it this way. He's like, then I'm okay. All I can deal with is what I have to deal with. The sphere of influence that He's given me, the people who I have in my life, who I get to interact with, I can affect them for change, for good, or I can choose to affect them in a bad way. I'd rather just make this a much better place to work, and for our clients and employees. There's no reason that work is something you spend so much time doing. You better enjoy it and the people you work with. Life's too short to hire people you dislike or to do jobs you dislike.
Agreed. Well, thank God for everything He's doing inside of you guys and with your business, as you said, touching your clients' lives, and especially the change opportunity that you have with your employees. Don't really have time to unpack that right now, but I want to note it as very real and something we should not overlook. I remember a scripture in James that was very admonishing about doing right by the people that work for you. And, the Lord of the Sabbath is listening to their cries, So we need to make sure that we make the most of all those opportunities and are faithful in each and every one. Thank you so much for your time, Scott. Let's get some of those links, and I'll jot those down if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell my wife about the window course. Wait, it's for historic. I can go ahead and tell her
safe.
about that.
So the business, you can visit us at austinhistorical.com.
Okay.
For the blog, for content side of things, it's thecraftsmanblog.com.
Okay.
All of the social, like Facebook is Craftsman Blog, Instagram, YouTube, they're all The Craftsman Blog.
Okay.
So you can find us on all those. And if you do have old windows and you want to restore them yourself, that's thewindowcourse.com.
The Window Course. That is cool, man. And I applaud your creativity in, demonstrating value in new ways versus just your traditional business. I think that's very cool. I hope it continues to do well for and expand for you guys. I don't even have historical windows, and I'm apprehensive, so it's got to be even more, you know.
Well, I read a book years ago that's a classic, Who Moved My Cheese? And it's just a great book for this when you're like, hey, the market's moving. You can't be like, well, what I do is this. You're like, what you do is not effective anymore. If you sell buggy whips, you probably have a very small market. You need to move with the market. And so that's what we did when COVID hit, was like, what are people doing? So I think anybody in business who could do that, just pay attention to your market and the marketing opportunities out there, because your cheese is going to move and you just need to move with it and find it.
No question. Totally agreed on that book. Completely agreed. We'll backlink to that as well, as you've referred to it. Very real stuff right there. Scott, blessings to you and to your family and to your business, your employees, your customers. And thanks for being with us very much, man. I really appreciate it.
Same to you, Scott. It's a real pleasure.
All right. All the best.
All right.
I'm Scott McClelland for your FX Missions Leadership Moment. To contact me or us, please do so at fxmissions.com.
Thank you for joining Scott with today's Leadership Moment. We hope you've apprehended an inspirational nugget or two that, when activated in your own life, will be imparted into those you lead. You may contact Scott at scott@fxmissions.com. Visit fxmissions.com to learn more about how you can grow your own leadership and engage in missions. Until next time, good day, everyone.